A quadratic equation is an equation of second degree, meaning it's an equation with an x squared term. So, for example, x squared equals 4 would be a quadratic equation. Another example of a quadratic would be x plus 3 squared minus 6 equals 10. That's also a quadratic equation because we have an x quantity that has been squared. Quadratics can also be written like 2x squared plus 6x minus 9 equals 0. This is another example of a quadratic equation. Different forms, but the key is that in each of these separate equations we have an x squared, making it a second degree or quadratic equation. There are several approaches that we can use in order to solve a quadratic equation or to find the roots of a quadratic equation. One of those methods is called taking the square root. We know that a square root and squaring are inverse operations. So if we have something with a square that needs to be undone, we can do that by taking the square root. So we're going to look at a couple of examples of quadratics that can be solved by this method. The first one is x squared equals 4. Now you can probably solve this in your head by simply asking yourself what number squared would equal 4. And you should be able to give me two answers to this. The answers would be x equals 2 and x equals negative 2. Because if we were to take these two values and substitute them back into the original equation, 2 squared would equal 4. And also, negative 2 squared would equal 4. So the solutions to this quadratic equation are positive 2 and negative 2. If we wanted to, instead of just looking at this and figuring it out by thinking about what squares to be for, we could actually take a square root of both sides. Taking a square root is a mathematical operation. So, as with any other mathematical operation, provided you do the same thing to both sides, you can take the square root. Well, the square root of x squared is just x. The square and the square root are inverse operations. They undo each other. The square root of 4 is 2. But we also have to include a plus or minus because there are two different numbers that we could square to give us 4. Anytime we introduce a square root or take the square root of both sides of an equation, we have two solutions. We have both a positive and a negative, and we have to remember to take those into consideration. So by taking the square root of both sides, we get the solutions positive 2 and negative 2. Let's take a look at another example. Let's look at 2 times x plus 4 squared equals 32. Now, in this case, not only do we have something squared, but we also have a coefficient outside of that squared term. So our first step is going to be to eliminate that coefficient. Well, since that is 2 times our squared quantity, to undo that we'll have to divide, and it will leave us with x plus 4 squared equals 32 divided by 2 is 16. Now we're down to a quantity squared. To eliminate this, we need to take the square root of both sides. We know that taking the square root of a square will eliminate that and leave us with x plus 4 equals the square root of 16 is 4. However, because we took the square root of both sides, there were two different things that can make this happen, both a positive 4 and a negative 4. So make sure you include your plus or minus, and our last step to get the x by itself would be to subtract 4. So our solutions are x equals plus or minus 4 minus 4. That's kind of a strange way to look at a solution. So to figure out our two different solutions to get a better idea of what these numbers are, split this up into the two different pieces. We have positive 4 minus 4 and we have negative 4 minus 4. 4 minus 4 is 0, and negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8. These are the two different solutions to our quadratic. We have x equals 0 and x equals negative 8.